Hello, and welcome to Answer Everywhere. Today, we're taking a look at Visual Studio Code, possibly the most popular text editor in history. I guess you wouldn't call it a text editor, you'd call it an IDE, but I think everyone knows what's up. It's the Microsoft IDE that has, among other things, popularized and I think invented the language server protocol and the corresponding debugger protocol and a lot of other things. My understanding is that it's basically a bunch of web views and a bunch of JavaScript. We've seen some, in the past, we've looked at a few repositories that do language protocol server stuff. I think we looked at the Rust language protocol server. We looked at SourceGraph, which doesn't, I think, use LSP, but does kind of similar things. We've looked at a few compilers, including GCC, LLVM, and some others that are slipping my mind now. So I think that we have a pretty good sense of how they will have implemented things like parsing languages, syntax highlighting, etc. We have a sense of how the language server protocol stuff will work. There will be some service in the background that is serving requests on some port, most likely, hopefully only serving to local connections. And when certain things happen in the window, like if I can grab Visual Studio here, like when I hover at a specific place, it'll find out where I am in this piece of code. It will find the corresponding code element and query the LSP server for that piece of information. That's all the sort of stuff that we've seen before. So here's an example of a JavaScript, possibly TypeScript. It says .js, but I saw something about TypeScript. So if I click here, it'll figure out that this is a function by doing all the parsey stuff that we've seen before. It also does a lot of kind of like background job stuff. Like when you click on a file, it might query the Git repository about certain types of information. It will, I think, know if you are looking at a file that hasn't been committed to source control. It does this sort of linting where it's running some linter, I think probably ESLint, and everywhere there is a lint issue, it squiggly underlines the code and highlights it in this little map here, which I feel like was probably pioneered by some other text editor, although I'm not really sure. So all of that stuff, I think we can potentially find out where that is, but I feel a little bit like that's relatively well-trodden ground. One thing I'm a little bit curious about for VS Code is things like the information gathering. How does it collect statistics about who is using what? Telemetry is what that's called. I'm curious if we can see much about the telemetry, not only because I'm curious as a tech, a person in the tech industry, to know what it is that Microsoft thinks is important and what sort of like hooks it has for dealing with this sort of stuff. And also, we haven't really looked at any, telemetry code yet. We've looked at some maybe similar stuff, like some eBPF stuff, which these days might be used for stuff like profiling and tracing. But we haven't looked at other things like feature flags or telemetry that are used by especially large companies to have visibility into their deployed software base to help them make decisions about things like which features are people actually relying on, what features should we invest time and money in next, and those sorts of things. So that's one question I have about Visual Studio Code. And another question is maybe just a little bit about what if they have anything interesting in the way that they've done like plugins or extensions. I think that most likely there are a few things that account for the popularity of Visual Studio Code. One is, of course, that Microsoft has always had a reputation as building nice to use developer tools, and they just kind of know how to do it. Another is that they have a lot of money to invest in marketing, and so even among, if VS Code was like almost as good or equally good to some other editor, you might imagine that VS Code kind of has an advantage just because of marketing. And a third thing is that it's written in, I believe, mostly in JavaScript. So whereas other editors like that we've looked at, like Emacs and Vim, those editors still remain very popular, but they're older technologies and they're not written in the language of the web, which means that that it's much easier for many people these days to contribute new extensions or new pull requests to VS Code than it is to something like Emacs or Vim, etc. So those are kind of some things that I have in mind. And with that kind of out of the way, let's click around a little bit. We see typings. I am not so familiar with TypeScript, but it seems like maybe they keep their types in a separate file, which I think is maybe something OCaml does. So in source typings required, we have only a few types. I don't know if this is interesting or informative, but we have an enum about a loader event. So like begin loading script, script OK, script error, some sort of factory. We got some kind of Java inspired factories, it looks like. Node, begin evaluating script, node, end evaluating script. I don't know what node is. I don't know if this is Node.js. This is kind of nice seeing the git blame here. You see that this particular line comes from some sort of perf stuff. All of this is like fast and responsive, which is nice. And so on and so forth. Okay. We've got these defines. I don't know exactly what this is going on. This seems to be a type for a function type. Can I scroll down? We have, this seems to be some function that takes a bunch of arguments and returns an any. And I'm not sure what this latter type refers to, but this function takes a module name, some dependencies, which are, the module name is a string, the dependencies is a list of strings, and some callback function. And I guess this callback function returns an any, and the type of this whole thing is also any. I guess that's maybe not the type of a function, but maybe the, I don't know. What is this doing? It doesn't seem to have associate names with any of this stuff. And I assume define is like a language keyword. Replace declare var with declare const. Now let's ask I'm sufficiently curious that I'll ask ChatGPT. So what is this? I think it's TypeScript. Declares a variable define. Okay, I guess the variable is called define. Okay, it's used to define module. And okay. So I guess define is the name that we're defining somehow. All right, and then we have node require for node.js. So I don't know to what extent VS Code requires Node.js. We have looked at Node.js. You can build in Visual Studio. Let's see if we can look. Should I look for node.js or node.js? We've got this run unit test node.js thing. No, I don't want GitHub Actions. Stop that. Is this my search window? No. Here? Okay. We've got a bunch of references to Node.js. I wonder if that is essentially what we're running. We just do top. We have this node IPC flag in this ESLint server. Not sure. Let's ask AIs again. Does Visual Studio Code depend on Node.js? So ChatGPT says it does. Node.js is used in various aspects of VS Code's functionality. The Electron framework. Okay, it's built. I didn't know it was actually literally an Electron app. That's, I guess, not surprising, although it's not what I expected. And I'm going to be able to hear myself better. How do I do this? Let me just pump up the volume, I guess. How's that? Let's try that. It's built on the Electron framework. Okay, so it's an Electron app, which allows for the development of desktop applications using web technologies, blah, blah, blah. The extension system allows developers to enhance and customize their editing experience and interact with Node.js APIs to access file system operations. I don't know if this means if that VS Code explicitly gives you access to Node.js APIs in some sort of pass-through manner. There's an integrated terminal that's powered by Node.js, and it has NPM integration. And so I maybe they do their package management via NPM. So let's look via VS Code Electron. Move away from Electron. An overall suggestion. I've been interested in Tari for a while. It's basically Electron, but written in Rust. Yeah, some Rust guy wants to, or guy or gal wants to move to Rust, some Rust version of an existing thing. That's not so surprising. Let's see if we can find references to Electron in here. Electron main. So we have this ESLint. Okay. I don't know what that means here. We have it in package JSON. I want to see if we're like importing Electron libraries. Can I files to include? How about star.js? Yeah. We have this gulp file, some filters. I don't really think that that's browser main.js. So we require Electron to get an app, a browser window, IPC main. I'm guessing Electron has some sort of IPC stuff. And we have IPC handle, picdir, IPC main handle, which I don't know exactly what this is doing, but it has some async function that's going to await on the opening of the dialog, passing in some window, which is starting as null. And we have the title choose parent folder and the properties open directory. I don't know what properties are doing, but this is basically showing some open dialog, I guess, when picdir is maybe sent over the IPC framework or something along those lines. And then if you're canceled, then we return undefined. And then somehow if we're down here, I guess we ask them to actually pick a directory. I guess the thing that we get from show open dialog is the result, which must be the directory itself that we've pucked. And then we call file paths 0. I don't know what file path 0 is. Seems like the first file path. So I guess those are probably the files in the directory, or I guess probably most likely the directory itself. And we've got this called an app once ready. So maybe ready is some sort of IPC signal that's sent when all of the setup stuff is done. Then once we're ready, we create a new browser window, which is going to be essentially some Chrome instance, I think, or a Chrome window with a specific width, 800 by 600, and some preferences saying that we want node integration to be true. We want no context isolation, and we want to enable web SQL. Oh, sorry, we don't want to enable web SQL. I don't even know what web SQL is. Some version of SQL for the web. But let's look that up. Web SQL databases is a deprecated web browser API specification for storing data in databases that can be queried using a SQL variant. It is only ever implemented in Blink-based browsers like Google Chrome. Okay. Okay, so we don't want web SQL, I guess, because we're no longer, it's no longer a thing. It's deprecated. And then we set the menu bar visibility to false and load a URL. What URL do we load? Some path name. And we path join some stuff. I guess index, so some index HTML file. The protocol is file, I think, meaning we are loading a file from the directory. And where's the URL coming from? I think this is just a library URL format. Path name is path. And where did we get path? No, path name is, we're going to join the dir name, the underscore dir name. And given the two underscores, I'm going to guess that this is essentially a global or kind of ambient class level variable that gets set to wherever you said that you wanted your files to be. We're going to comment out this, this open dev tools. This seems like somebody has this here as like a developer thing to quickly uncomment if they want to debug. And then the window, the window we're going to call once, I guess, presumably this means, this is, I don't know if this is some IPC thing again, but like, it's the same thing here. But once we somehow get a closed signal, I think, then we're going to set the window to null, essentially closing all the windows. So I have a couple of questions here. One is, what's up with IPC main? Can I go to, let's go to type definition. There's no type definition. Can I go to definition? Oopsie. No. Can I go to references? Not really. All right, let's ask IPC main. Electron. An event emitter. Okay. So it's just some event thing. I don't know if it counts as real IPC, but we're going to send events to each other. And then let's see if we can find once. That's handle once. Can I find dot once? No, I don't know. I guess underneath is where it adds a one-time listener function for the event. So I guess once in the sense that like after we've done the event, we're not going to continue listening for new events like we would if we were like processing mailbox messages. This listener is invoked only the next time a message is sent to the channel, after which it is removed. Only once. So what happens if, like if I send two messages simultaneously, is this saying that like, I don't think this is saying that like, where are we? That for example, app once ready will look for the first ready message and execute it once. This seems to be saying it will just take the first message, and if it's not ready, it will do nothing at all. That's possible. That doesn't seem so likely, but who knows? Is this the same page? All right, well, I'm going to assume that somehow this app knows to to call this once thing properly. And at any rate, this is just listening for some event. And I don't know where these events are sent. Somebody's going to send a picture. Somebody's going to send a ready event. So let's see if we can find this ready string. We have classless add ready. App once ready is essentially what we just saw. App on ready. That's a similar thing. Maybe ready is emitted by the Electron framework and is not something that we have access to in this repo. What about Pictor? We have invoke Pictor. So this is, what file is this? Browser main.js in build/built-in. And we have this, we're in the middle of some function here, but inside this function, we're going to call await IPC render invoke Pictor and get the result. And when we get the result, we're going to take this control variable, which seems to be up here, and set its name, the x.name to result. And then we're going to set the state to built-in control. Presumably this will cause a refresh if we're using something like React. Are we using React? I don't know. We have functions that set state and function render. So set state on the state is going to try to write JSON on the control file path with state.control and error. And then we're going to call render of EL, comma state. And then the render function has this kind of other implementation here. And just to get a flavor for what we're doing, we're creating a document, or rather we have some document. I'm guessing the overall HTML document that we have loaded into the browser. And we're creating an unordered list element and setting built-in control to the, I guess, the current state, or maybe the state that was passed in here. I don't know if we've used L yet. And then we're going to iterate over the X of built-in. I don't know what X is supposed to mean, but if we have the control X name or marketplace, I'm guessing maybe marketplace is like where you can get extensions. Is this marketplace? Extensions marketplace. Or is it just looking for marketplace because, yeah, I think this is just, this thing is marketplace. So I guess this is, it gets is kind of like hard coded as a thing it can do, even if you don't have other stuff set up. At any rate, so if we get a control state from either the thing that we passed in or marketplace, we're going to create a list element for each X. I guess X is probably extension. And then we're going to take the list element we built and put it as a child of the unordered list. And then we're going to create an element code, which I don't think is valid HTML. Maybe it is. Shows what I know. Define some text as computer code and document. So I guess this is just like a way of displaying computer code, kind of like putting something in backticks in Markdown. And we'll put the name, extension name in code, and we'll create an element form that we will append to the list. And form basically is totally empty at this point. And then we will call a render option, passing in the form and the marketplace dash extension name and marketplace and some control state and maybe some other stuff. Yeah. And then we will set its onChange function to be, we'll set the control extension name to marketplace and we'll call, when things change, we'll call set state built-in control. What I don't know yet is like, where are we getting this stuff from this form? I guess this is somehow via the call to set state, like the thing that populates it, and so on and so forth. In main, in browser main.js, we have this get element by ID extensions. So this is, I guess, mainly the extension window. And we're going to read some JSON file from the built-in extensions path, all of the built-in extensions, create this control variable, and try to read the control path, the JSON file, and then we'll try to render. Sounds good. So I have a .vs code here. If I go to extensions, I should see some JSON files of some sort. What's a cool extension? I have all Dart code. And we have some telemetry.json. I don't know if that's anything we're reading here, but it's some configuration file. And I think more or less we're kind of doing this, although read JSON control file path. And where does control file path come from? So go to definition should be F12. F12 is already taken, you monster. Okay, so it's the home directory VS Code OSS dev extensions control.json. I don't think I have this file. Let's try this just in the background. Permission denied. Well, if that's fine. All right, so this is, so that's what that's doing. That's all relatively straightforward. Let's see if we can find some telemetry stuff. We have disabled telemetry. We have this gulp source thing. What is gulp? Import gulp. We have .build telemetry. Can I go to, hey, can I go to definition? Let's look up gulp. Gulp.js. Leverage gulp and the flexibility of JavaScript to automate slow, repetitive workflows and compose them into efficient build pipelines. Okay, so this is some build pipeline situation. So it's flexible and composable. You use code, using code over configuration, utilize all of JavaScript to create your gulp file. Okay, so gulp does some sort of work pipelines, slow, repetitive workflows. So these are like long-running tasks. I don't know what it means by slow. If there's some cutoff for slowness. We have this renderer.js, search model, allow tests with unhandled rejections. So this is some test. Search reports timed telemetry on search when error is called. I don't know what this means. So we only have a couple of references to telemetry. Let's find out what disabled telemetry does. In here, we have this thing seems to be parsing commands, and it seems to be a Rust file. Is that right? Is there some other reason to call something RS? I guess this is Rusty. You have using and crate. So if disabled telemetry, we're just going to target push disabled telemetry to string. So this is just taking some it's just turning it into a command line argument. Here is some other JavaScript thing. We've got telemetry level. Let's look up telemetry level. And is parsed in arguments. And we perhaps, so source VS platform environment node has this thing. I think this is just defining the command line types. So for example, it's saying that the type of telemetry level is a string. I don't know if we get a list of things that it can be set to. In server services, here we go. This seems promising. We have initial telemetry level arg. Hey, is set to environment service.args telemetry level. I'm guessing environment service is something like it's a native, and it extends native environment service, implements iServer environment service. I think this is basically just going to tell you the arguments that the VS Code was called with. We have a roaming data home and server parsed arguments. And you can get both of those. And we are memoizing because the arguments don't change. So we're basically just asking what telemetry level was set on the command line or through the whatever file was used to invoke this VS Code. And then we get let injected telemetry level, which I think this means of type telemetry level, is set to telemetry level dot usage. This seems to be probably some enum. What does peak do? I don't know what that is. But let's take this thing, and I want to find all of the references in a new tab, though. There we go. That'll be fine for now. I'll peek at this later. Okay. And then we look at the string, right? The telemetry level arg, this was the thing that you passed in. And we see here that there are a few possibilities. We're not parsing them really into the possibilities. We just have some if-else logic. And if it's set to the literal string all, then we set it to telemetry level usage. If it's set to the string error, then we set it to telemetry level error. And then if it's crash, we set it to the enum value telemetry level crash. And I'm guessing that crash means like essentially some version of when your app crashes that's considered in some catastrophic way, it will send a report to Microsoft, whereas usage is going to send it like just information about what you use in general, whatever they decide is important to measure. All right, and then we're going to, on the services thing, which must be some collection of services, we're going to set iServer telemetry service, a new sync descriptor with server telemetry service type, I guess. And as part of the config element, I guess, we're passing in the injected telemetry level, which we figured out from this from this command line argument. So let's see if we can go to telemetry service level, or the service itself, rather. Server telemetry service. It extends telemetry service. Is this? I don't know which one's better to look at. Maybe we'll look at the generic class itself. How do I get this to go away? There. Okay. All right. So it's going to implement iTelemetry service, which should be the interface. I don't know yet how to open this in a new tab. This is in my way here. But we have this iTelemetry service thing here. It's like create decorator. I don't know what that is. And but we do have an interface for iTelemetry data that has from and target and a key. So that's pretty generic. I don't know what from means. I don't know if target is. Maybe target is. It's going to be like the software project or the line of code or something along those lines. Then here's the actual interface. I don't know how these two differ. These are the same literal string, right? Okay. All right, so we have a few things. We have a bunch of read-only stuff, such as the service brand, the telemetry level, which we've seen before, a session ID, a machine ID. So I guess every machine gets its own unique ID. A SQM ID, SQM ID. I don't know what that is. Let's look that up. Some Windows thing. The Windows SQM software quality metrics, a precursor of Windows 10 diagnostic data collection device identifier. So some device identifier, a first session date, and some Microsoft internal Boolean thing. I guess maybe Microsoft internal is from the fact that they might use this also in Microsoft, and they might have additional telemetry enabled for their employees. Or it might be something else. I don't know. Whether the error telemetry will get set. If false, public log error will no op. Okay, so this, I guess, whether to send the error. Some deprecated stuff about public log. Public log 2 sends a telemetry event that has been privacy approved. Do not call this unless you have been given approval. So they have some privacy policy. And to add a call to public log 2, you need to, I guess, go through some process, probably involving lawyers and privacy experts. Then we have the telemetry endpoint, which has some ID, which is a string, an AI key, and send error telemetry Boolean. I don't know if AI key is supposed to be API key or if it's supposed to be AI key. And we have this this interface for custom endpoint telemetry service. I guess this is possibly for defining your own endpoint. We have, like, for example, public log takes an endpoint, an event name, and some telemetry data, which is possibly null. What I don't see in this endpoint yet is like a URL. Maybe that's what the ID is supposed to be, but I'm not sure. We have some keys. Like these are just like telemetry, like the string literal telemetry .sqm ID, machine ID, last session date, etc., etc. And some configuration keys. So these are getting logged into some service, and I think these are just the keys of the data in that service. And then you have this telemetry level stuff, which we've seen before. And this is similar. It's just mapping the, I guess, types to their strings. And we have some, whatever common properties is. It's got a name. It's a list of names, I guess. And somehow they can be strings, booleans, or undefined. All right, that's a little bit informative. That tells us at least a little bit about their data model. I still don't know where they configure like the URL that telemetry is sent to. And we haven't seen yet how it's used, how it's called in practice from some method that's going to send telemetry. So here's telemetry service.ts. We've got some telemetry service config, a bunch of properties. We've seen these properties in the other file. PII paths, maybe private identifying information, telemetry level, send error telemetry, some cleanup patterns for VS Code file, dangerous path resources at blah, blah, blah. This is some, I guess, regex that's matching this resources path stuff. And I'm not sure why, but I guess this is like potentially private or identifying in a way that they don't want to collect the data. For PII paths of this PII paths, we're going to push a new regex calling escape regex characters on the PII path and this GI thing, which appears here. And if the index of // forward two forward slashes on the PII path is bigger than or equal to 0, we are going to replace all of the two forward slashes with a single slash. And again, oh, you know what? GI, I think, is like the kind of sed notation for replace all occurrences and maybe also replace it in place. Let's double check that. Oh, ignore case. Yeah. I means insert text. Yeah, I think little I is. I know you can call it as an argument to sed. I have never tried adding it at the end of the string, the pathy, the replacement string thingy. But I'm guessing that that's what the syntax means. And so this is maybe for handling Unix style paths instead of Windows style paths, perhaps. Because we're going from forward slashes to, backslashes to forward slashes. Which one's considered the back version? I think this is a forward slash, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay, and then we're going to call update telemetry level after setting these like PII paths. I'm pretty sure PII must be private identifying information, personally identifiable information. Okay, and then under to disposables, we're going to add something, add some telemetry stuff. I don't know why it's disposable. I guess we could always recreate it. And then we have some experiments, set experiment property with a name and some value. And then we just have some list of experiment properties. Here's the update telemetry level thing. And we've got collectible telemetry. We're going to look at the enabled levels. If we have some collectible telemetry, we'll set some, like whether to send it. And we'll look at the usage variable and set the level to the min of, I guess, whatever our max collectible level is, etc. And here's the send error telemetry thing. I don't know if this is just getting the, I think this is just getting the Boolean, like what is it set to? It's like a getter for that variable. And then if you call dispose, all the things that are disposable will dispose of them. And if we're logging, we can log like the telemetry level, etc. Here's like a description of the different levels. And we have, what is this? This is some deprecated setting. Okay, so all of that's useful. We have telemetry utils, telemetry IPC, We have a telemetry appender channel that will send events. It'll listen for some events. And I guess it seems like, at least by default, it'll just say that it doesn't have the event. And then if you, this call function, whoops, how do I make this go away? This call function has a bunch of appenders, which is different from offenders. And for all of the offenders, for each of them, we're going to call log of the event name and data. And that, I guess, will append it to the log. And then we're going to return promise resolve null, which I guess is a promisified version of null. And then a telemetry appender client has this log, which I think is what's called here. You're going to give it a string and some data, just like here. And it's going to look in some channel because we're doing IPC, and it's going to call, I guess, the log event, given the event name and data. And then if there's some, I guess, error, we're going to just log to the console and then promise resolve null. I guess we have to promise resolve null because we are essentially a void function, but we're being called by async code. So we have to return something promisey. All right, so we're building up a little sense of how they're doing telemetry. GDPR typings. I definitely want to look at GDPR typings. Here's error telemetry. And what do we have? An error fragment. The owner, L Ramos 15 S Batten. Are those the developers of this particular repo? I keep seeing Ramos here. So I don't know if this means that this is a configured file for this repo and that each repo is supposed to say who the owner is, or if this means that L Ramos 15 is the owner of error reporting in Microsoft and all of VS Code goes to him. All VS Code telemetry is owned by him or something along those lines. We have this comment whenever an error in VS Code is thrown. And we have, I guess this is probably some of the stuff that's sent. A call stack. And like the classification tells you like what sort of thing it is. Purpose, performance, and health. And comment the call stack of the error. A message, whoopsie. A message is a kind of call stack, the message of the error. So this is part of the same call stack stuff, I guess. A file, presumably the file that calls the thing, the line number, column. If there's an uncaught error, what the name of that was, or in the corresponding message, and count, maybe how many times did this error, has this error been thrown? Okay, so this is an insight into the kind of data they're collecting, at least on an error. And this is kind of all the same stuff, call stack, message, etc. Here's a base error telemetry. We have some flush timeout, the telemetry service stuff, some buffer, and a constructor. And we can clear the timeout if we dispose of it and flush the buffer and all that stuff. And on error event, if we don't have an error or error code, we bail out. We will unwrap nested errors, I guess, from the error detail stack. If it's the no telemetry error, it doesn't get logged. Okay, so if the error is that, I guess, that we don't have telemetry enabled, then we don't log that. L Ramos has a to-do, which he has misspelled, which means that whatever tooling he has to look at to-dos, we'll probably never find it. And it says hacking and file operation error because it's too messy to adopt error no telemetry. Should I fix this? There's lots of tudes. I assume this is supposed to be to do, right? Is it possible that tude is its own thing? So here's the online version. Should basically be about the same because we're essentially just serving JavaScript remotely as opposed to locally. How do I tell it that I want all caps? I keep thinking I have Emacs code bindings, but I don't. So can I create a pull request? So see, VS Code create pull request GitHub. What is this? To create pull requests, hover over the GitHub pull request title and click the plus sign. Here? Created by me. Where's the plus sign? Where? Oh well, I guess that maybe they don't want me to do this. I guess I can commit and push. I don't know. I don't know what that will do. Correct. Likely typos. To do. And comments. Yeah, I guess I'll make a fork. All right, whatever. Back to reading the code. All right. So I just was curious to see how that worked in GitHub. All right. So he had this TUD hacking in file operation error because it's too messy to adopt error node telemetry. A better solution should be found. It's too messy to adopt error node telemetry. Okay. So this is some sort of hack, I guess, just because it's special casing this telemetry error in the telemetry system. And we have some workaround for worker server that breaks up error stack. I don't know what that's about, but something about the call stack. We don't have a call stack we return. Otherwise, we infuse the message into the call stack, and the message being, we take the error message and, or rather, if we have the error message, we give it. Otherwise, we safe stringify the error, and then we enqueue. And then in queuing, oh, I see somebody's trying to help me here. If you code a code editor from scratch, which language framework would you? That's a reasonable question. I don't know. I guess I would probably do JavaScript. I'd probably do what the Visual Studio Code did if I did do it from scratch. I don't see like a lot of benefit in doing something like C++ or Rust for speed. I think like TypeScript, something that's has good enough types and people can move quickly in. So we in queue, we have some binary search. I guess we're gonna on this buffer, passing in the error event. We've got some comparator, I guess, that we're going to use as the binary search comparison. And I'm not sure really what that's doing. I guess it's finding the error maybe in the buffer, or maybe just placing it where it needs to go. I guess because we're computing the index and then calling some flush stuff. All right, so that's kind of like how some of the telemetry stuff is sent. And the last thing I want to do is I would like to see a call, like a somewhere where we're like actually not just sending call stacks, but like checking out like who's using this new feature, or is this experiment working, etc. Like some A/B testing type stuff. But before that, we have this GDPR stuff, which is I believe is going to be privacy related stuff for the European GDPR law. Again, we have an owner, a comment, and some expiration. I guess expiration because stuff has to be deleted. We have a property without metadata, omit metadata. Okay, so this is like for adding support, I guess, for like expiry when stuff needs to be deleted, and also like omitting metadata, I guess, so that we can comply with the law. It seems to be the sort of thing that's going on in this GDPR stuff. So let's look for experiment. I kind of want to exclude all of the boring files. I can just do JS. How about start at TS? We have experimentation service. I guess that's a good place to start. This should be more or less like the telemetry, but we have experiments now, and we have a telemetry reporter in the experimentation service. We can create a TAS experimentation service. TAS, I don't know. VS Code Memento. There's some global state VS Code Memento, whatever TAS is, TAS target population, and we have a URI scheme. We can switch. We're switching based on the URI scheme of what's in VS Code.env. And if you're a VS Code insider, I don't know what that means. That might mean a Microsoft person. That might mean there's some like insiders club. If you're like a VS Code super user, and this will tell you who this will tell you, I guess, like where you might get different experiments, or you might want to just separate the data based on this stuff. Let's look up VS Code Insiders. Okay, I guess this is like a different version. This is the Insiders build. It's maybe like for people who are like super into VS Code and like want to get all the newest stuff or have their opinion heard about which VS stuff is the coolest. VS Code stuff is the coolest. All right, so we have these different populations. These may all correspond to different versions of VS Code, and we just segment the experiments by them somehow. We have experiment types, of which currently there are none. It seems like you could just get rid of this type. They're, if you don't have a use for something yet, it's often good to get rid of it, but who knows? Maybe they have a planned use for it and they just haven't made it public yet. So where can we find an actual experiment? Let experiment telemetry reporter, blah, blah, blah. Lazy client host is an extension. We have some configuration stuff mapped. Is this one? Is enabled. This is some mapped code edit provider. We have is enabled. To find out if it's enabled, we look in the VS Code workspace, get configuration, TypeScript, get Boolean, experimental map code edits enabled. And the default, I guess, is false. Let's see if we can find more about this string. Can I just do a search for the string from here? Maybe find all references. Well, let me just try grabbing the string and searching for it here. Okay. What about other experimental stuff? Experimental drop custom metadata. Okay. And so let's also look for drop custom metadata. Here is some Python file, right? No, ipynb main.typescript.ts. We've got whatever this is, return get drop custom metadata. And we're going to, based on the value of that, we're going to return not use custom property metadata and some notebook subs. So this is maybe like some Python notebook. Notebook metadata. Activate. Context subscriptions push. Register notebook serializer interactive. What is going on? A code lens provider and some subscriptions. Huh. So VS Code, Jupyter Notebook. Is this just support in the editor for Jupyter Notebooks? Working with Jupyter Notebooks in VS Code. So you can open a notebook and it will do notebooky things, I guess. You have access to it. You can run the cells, etc. So that's actually kind of interesting. So what are we doing? We have to be essentially calling out the Python, right? They're not going to, I don't think they would implement a Python interpreter just for this. But we're going to create a terminal environment, which seems like we're going to create eventually call real Python. We have some iProcess internal. If is Macintosh, we set some stuff and merge environments, probably like taking a bunch of environment variables and merging them. Prepare a path for shell. Takes a path. Oh, no, I'm in the wrong file. I'm in terminal environments. How did I get in terminal environments? Oh, I'm in the wrong screen. Okay, so we have this open notebook document, register command. I'm just kind of curious, like, how are we getting to Python? We have some notebook serializer, serialized to string, set context, Jupyter enabled, etc., etc. So language is Python. We've got some subscriptions. And we're subscribing to notebooky stuff. We've got some cells and notebook data and some custom properties. So what happens if you send, okay, activate, keep notebook model, store in sync. I'm guessing that probably what they have is some Python terminal listening to events, and they're going to send events whenever you do something with your notebook. But maybe we can find out here in this directory, IPyNB, attachment cleaner, image paste, serializers, types, helpers, deserializers, constants, and comment. Look at comment. Output type execution count, cell metadata. But what about when you actually execute stuff? What about a README? It provides open, edit, and save. I guess if you're only opening, editing, and saving, then maybe you don't really need to run the notebooks. It says you can run the cells though. You can create Jupyter by running cells. Once your code is edited, you can run a cell using the run icon to the left of the cell, and the output will be displayed. Yeah, so I should be able to run. So how about I grab this directory name. Okay, so that, I guess, we have prune cell, test runner. The cell has not been run. I don't know. Somehow running is happening, but I don't see any real references in the code. Ext Python. I'm guessing that's external Python. Install Python 3.1. 3.10. Yeah, so I'm going to guess that under the hood it installs Python and runs Python and somehow communicates with it, but I'm not seeing really where exactly that happens. And I think I'm going to kind of leave things there since it's been an hour and 20 minutes. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I really wanted to see in VS Code before we go. I think it's fine to leave it there. We saw a few things, of which the things I didn't know include that it's based on Electron, or at least still seems to be, despite some requests to move to some other system. And if I believe ChatGPT, it's running Node.js in the background. There certainly seems to be references in the code to Node.js, and we're basically treating everything as like a Chrome window with all of the things that come with that, like laying things out in HTML and CSS. And there's, I think, a lot to be said with reusing all of those tools, of which have been, companies and people have invested tons of money into making those tools nice. So it makes sense to have that as the starting place for a text editor. And we just peeked around a little bit at at the telemetry stuff and the experiment stuff. And the idea there is just to get a feel for how some of this might work. It looks to me a lot like it's basically implemented as a remote logging service, as you might expect, and based at least on like some of the variable names and whatnot. It seems like they take or try to take privacy pretty seriously, which is good to see. And as you might expect from a company as large as Microsoft, even if they, they don't have as much leeway, let's say, as a startup to be really cavalier about data collection. So that's that. I think the next thing I'm going to do is the JVM. Before that, I'm going to take a break, maybe about 2 to 5 minutes, and then I'll be back to look at that.